Welcome, everyone. Good boy, Tucker. This is learning at its most fun.
Hello there, and thank you so much for attending another webinar here with Redtail. This week, we will be covering how to handle new employees, so adding new employees into your CRM. My name is Jackie. I am one of the trainers here at Redtail, and I'm so excited to have you all here with us this week. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and get started. Now, something I want to reiterate to all of you about our adding new employee process and everything we go over today, it is simply a suggestion. So don't feel that you have to add every single aspect of this particular process to your process. You can go ahead and pick and choose which pieces might work best for you and your team. Awesome. To begin today, we're actually going to start with a workflow. Now, for those of you who are choosing to utilize workflows, this might be a good option for you. If you're someone who's listening in who does not utilize workflows, that is definitely okay. You do not have to begin using workflows in order to utilize this process, but it might be something that you consider to help guide you. So today we are going to utilize this particular workflow that we've built out, and we're going to do so by popping in to our CRM. Excellent. We're going to get that new workflow started just by coming up to our little plus sign and selecting workflow or our quick add button. And I'm going to go ahead, and I already have a new employee workflow template. So we're not going to need to build out this template today. We simply need to select, oh, did I pass it? There it is, new employee workflow. Excellent. We don't have a contact to add yet, but we could potentially add a contact here in just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create and edit, and this will take me into my workflow. Now, my target date I set to today, so I have a couple of days before it looks like my employee actually comes in. But for the sake of today's training, we are going to go through this workflow as if it is a natural process or the employee is with us in office. Excellent. So first thing we can do is we can already check off some of these other tasks that I have given to the employee, like for example, giving them their employee handbook, having a meet and greet with our staff, completing and emphasizing our mission statement, and we've set up their email account. So this is one of the reasons why using a workflow, especially when having or applying a new employee into the system, is so useful and important, because it can help you keep track of all those little things that occur when someone new is starting in the office. Excellent. So once we've created and set up their email account, we need to add them as a new user into the CRM. Perfect. And the reason why we do that before we set up their email, before we add them as a new user, is so that way we can plug in their correct email address into Redtail. So we can add a new user by coming up to your name in the top right-hand corner, coming down to manage your account. I'm going to open this in a new tab so I can keep my workflow open. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to the admins only portion of the manage your account section. Now, keep in mind, you do need to have administrative access in order to access this particular section of the CRM. So from here, we're going to come and manage database users and teams. Excellent. And from here, we can go ahead and come up to the top right-hand corner and click new user. Awesome. Now, our new user's name is Tucker McLaughlin. And now keep in mind, everything on this page we can change later. So if we misspell Tucker's name, or if we, for example, put in the wrong email address, we can come in and alter those things. But I do want to emphasize the one thing we cannot change once it's created is the username. So we want to make sure that the username is something that's easy to remember or something we're going to pass on from user to user. So Tucker is coming on as a new advisor. So I am just going to make him Tucker 1, or You could use any combination of their last name, their first name, or numbers if you needed to. Just keep in mind you can't have spaces in the username. Excellent. I recommend making the password something easy like password 1234 or test or password or welcome one exclamation point. You still have to adhere to the password requirements, but you can make it something simple because the user will be able to change it when they log in. Excellent. We're going to confirm that password. And then we can add Tucker's email address. Once again, we can change this if we need to, but it's a lot easier if you create the email for the client first, or for the, employee first before coming in and adding it to their official user details. Excellent. We can put in Tucker's name. And then you can choose to make them an administrator from here. So this means that they'll have access to this particular page. They'll have access to your statuses, categories, all of your customizable lists. So you may choose to leave that off for now. Excellent. I don't want to save Tucker's password. It's my password. And then you'll also notice we can come over to Tucker's username, and we can click this little side arrow or our action button. And from here, you also have access to things like their user rights. So if we wanted to remove certain rights for Tucker, like changing servicing, writing advisors, combining contact records, deleting contacts, we could remove those rights from him as well. Excellent. You can also change and unlock passwords from here too. Just keep in mind, if you decide to change the password, you will need to know the previous password. Perfect. From this section, we can also add Tucker into any relevant teams. So if Tucker, for example, is going to be on our administrative team, we can go ahead and add him here, or into any other teams that he might be relevant. Excellent. Okay, so now that we've added Tucker to the database, let's go back to our workflow and click that as complete. I did that. And now we need to add his contact into the CRM. So I'm going to go back into my other tab here, and we can come up to the plus sign and click contact and begin adding Tucker to the CRM. Luckily, I already added him. So I did have some extra time this morning, and I came in and I added Tucker, but I didn't add any of his details. So we could come in to his contact details, change his status to employee. So if you are creating contact cards for each of your employee to track certain, phenomena that happen, like notes about them, or maybe private information about them, you could absolutely have an employee status as well as a category. So you could choose to leave them. You could mark them as a business relationship because they work for you, or they could potentially just have no category as well. We can plug in other important pieces here. Oh, Tucker's definitely male. We can say, okay, excellent. We can even track where they came from. So if we wanted to add and be specific, we could say Indeed or a referral if Tucker was referred by me or potentially by another employee. And what's even cooler is we can track that referral just like we would a referral from another contact or a referral for a contact. Excellent. Next, you could potentially put in servicing and writing advisor as their management. So as the people who are overseeing them. For me, for Tucker, it would be myself and potentially Jane. And then we can also store things like tax IDs here, as well as just other important information. Just as you would treat a client, you could store Tucker's birthday. Do we want to know when Tucker's birthday is? So we're reminded. As well as if Tucker's married, do we want to store Tucker's marriage anniversary in here too? Excellent. We can also use the client since date as an employee since date to help track anniversaries. Awesome. So once we have that information filled out, we can choose to use the contact card to continue to store information. If we go back into our workflow and we expand this particular add contact into the CRM, we also have an additional note that says add permissions if necessary. So if you are someone who is or are in office that is planning on creating different contact cards for each of your employees as well, you may choose to utilize permissions within this as in this capacity too. And permissions are particularly valuable if perhaps you're going to use the contact card to store private information that only management needs to be privy to. So you could come in and say, actually, I don't want Tucker to have access to his own profile, or I don't want Tucker to have access to anyone else's profile. So I'm going to give Tucker access here. And then I'm also going to give the admin team access. So that way, no one else is viewing private employee information. So that may be something you choose to do as well if you are going to set up a contact card for the client. You could also add yourself as the employer if you wanted to use Redtail as a hub and store your own private information, or excuse me, your own employee information in there. So if we wanted to put Redtail as an employer, we absolutely can as well. Awesome. And once again, this is just a way to store data or use the system to store data in a different capacity than perhaps what you're used to doing for your clients. Excellent. So once we have those different aspects of the contact card filled out, we can then come back in and we can link Tucker to our workflow. And now it's attached and on his client profile. So I'm going to go ahead and complete adding the contact into the CRM. You can also use the contact card to add emergency contact information. You could store that under the contact card itself. So we could choose to add an emergency phone number here, or you could also store it in the important information section. So that way it doesn't appear in searches with the rest of your clients. Excellent. So we've now added that. We can go ahead and check that off of our workflow. Next thing we need to do is add our announcement into Teams. Well, when you have a new employee, you may want to celebrate with the rest of your users that that new employee has started with you all. So adding an announcement to Teams can be a great way and an easy way to recognize that particular contact or that particular employee. So what we can do is we can go up to our name in the top right-hand corner, come down to manage your account. And for this particular aspect, you do not have to have admin rights in order to utilize it. So we don't need to worry about having administrative connections in order to utilize this section. Excellent. We're going to come down to the preferences and click manage team notices. And here's where we can, in the top right-hand corner, add a new team notice. So we can say, welcome, Tucker. And then we can add an additional notice if we want to, saying, please help us celebrate the addition of Tucker to our team. Excellent. And then this notice will begin to filter through with the rest of our notices. After a while, you may decide to take this team notice off because Tucker is no longer, or your new employee is no longer new. You can easily come in and use your action button to delete this out of the queue. But for now, let's go back to our workflow and check this as done. Had a nice little way of welcoming Tucker into the system. Now we can provide Tucker with his login credentials, which because we created his login, we can now give those to him. And finally, we just need to assign the next task in each of the workflow steps to Tucker. So if we expand to our next step, we can then come in and we can see that each of these steps set up in our workflow training is designed to help him use Redtail. And this is our next phase in our training process, is saying, okay, it is now time for the employee to make sure that they have a comprehensive handle on what using Redtail is like. So we like to say that we can come in using our workflow tasks and assign them to each of these individual tasks. So that way they appear on Tucker's workflow tasks to do, as well as they can appear on Tucker's to-date page. Excellent. We'll go through and finish this guy nice and quickly. Now, all of these, or you'll notice each of these are covering a different topic within Redtail. So first we had our Watch Redtail CRM overview. So this will be just a general overview of the system, learning how to add people, add contacts, potentially change statuses, change categories. We can also see from here how to adjust our preferences, use our calendar. You also might decide that you need a little bit more of a detailed overview of some of these different areas. So that's why we expand into other sections like getting started tutorials, and we have them listed here in the description. We also have reviewing the style guide for your particular office. I've added the style guide into the description for my office, but this is something very important to go over with your employees if you are utilizing a style guide. You want to make sure that they understand that there is a structure and a segmentation process within Redtail. So that way they come in and everything remains consistent. Excellent. Then we love to say that you should have them add themselves as a contact. So if you did want to potentially use this as a learning experience, it's good to practice. You could have them, if you've already added them as a contact like we did earlier, you could potentially have them add their cousins, their uncles, their mom and dad, their sibling, their significant other. So that way they can get some practice adding contacts into the system. And then finally, we like to have you just review any additional questions. So this is a good area for you to check in and go over with them and make sure, hey, do you know how to access your preferences? Do you know how to add a contact? Do you know how to change the status and category of a client? Do you know how to run an advanced search? So that way, if we need you to pull a list of contacts, you can easily do that. And then finally, can you pull a report? If we needed you to pull a particular report about all of the activities this month, or potentially if all of your clients had an annual review. These are all good checkpoints for you and your team to make sure that your employee is well prepared and equipped on the system. And you may ask yourselves, oh, well, we don't have enough, so we might need to come in and add an additional task and say, Tucker needs a one-on-one training. And that is a-okay too. That is why we are here. So if your new employees need a little bit more help, we are more than happy to be that outlet for them. So I assigned Tucker to all of his to-dos for our workflow here. Now, if you are not someone who is using workflows, you could absolutely choose to utilize activities instead. So if you are not using workflows, you can always assign them just a simple activity. So you can come up to our plus sign in the top right-hand corner, select activity. You could potentially choose to create a template as opposed to a workflow template. So you could say, okay, this is our onboarding task for Tucker. And then from here, simply select Tucker as the assignee on the activity. Go ahead, we can create that activity. And that way, in the activity as opposed to the workflow, we are easily able to help Tucker and make sure that those activities get done correctly. Let me view Tucker's calendar and just see. Oh, beautiful. There's his onboarding task. And we can choose to make this an all-day activity if we wanted to, or in the description, we can add the specific videos that he needs to watch too. So just keep in mind, there are two different ways that we could potentially assign out that information if needed. Excellent. All right, let's go back to our workflow since it's been guiding us for this particular session today. We're going to go ahead and say Tucker successfully completed all of his new employee training that he needed to do. We luckily have his entire contact set up. We were able to place his permissions on there correctly. And we were also able to make sure that all of his paperwork was filed accurately as well. So now finally, the last piece of our workflow here is to mark his annual review. So we're able to at all times know exactly when that anniversary is. We can put that on our client profile as well, but if we're not using it, having the workflow open for Tucker, so that way at the end of the year, when we see, oh, it's the 18th, it's a few days before his anniversary, we're going to want to schedule that annual review meeting and make sure that Tucker is still a happy employee, or potentially go over any additional pieces that Tucker might need to work on. Excellent. But that, for the most part, is how we would add a new employee into the Redtail CRM. So don't forget, we went over a lot today. We started a workflow. We then added that employee into the system under Manage Database Users and Teams. We then added them to any teams that were necessary, along with adding an additional contact for that particular employee, where we can place notes about them, assign them, potentially link them activities that are relevant around them, or require any additional planning for their job within our team. We also saw that we can add additional team announcements, so team notices that appear down here in our team notices section. And then finally, we assign them those workflow tasks so we can make sure that they have a comprehensive overview of the CRM. And don't forget, you can always make sure to show them the help desk up in the top right-hand corner with our little question mark. And at any time, we can use the help desk to look up anything they might be curious about. So if they were confused about how to add an account, all they have to do is come in here, search account. And if they just wanted a manual overview of accounts, we've got easy ones right here. Or if we wanted to get more specific with an integration, we could also do so. So using the help desk as a resource is also a great option for your new employees. But that being said, thank you all so much for attending today. I know that you could be doing a lot with your Thursdays, but we do appreciate when you are able to tune in to one of our webinars here. Thank you so much, and feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.